Scoreboard here on ICNTT TV, and it's my privilege and my honor to introduce my guest for today, and it's none other than Lauryn Williams, a very prominent track athlete from the USA of A. Lauryn, it's a pleasure. Welcome. I shouldn't say welcome back, but I say welcome home because you have that connection to Trinidad and Tobago. Right, so we're going to talk a bit about that.
It is good to be home.
It's good to be home. I like how you put it. There is so much that we can talk to, but the time is limited. So let's first of all talk a bit about Lauryn track. How did it all started for you, and what, now that you have retired and you look back, what are some of the fondest memories you would have taken out of that your career in track and field? Well, track activity, not field.
Well, I think one of the coolest things was that I started very young, but not as young as some. Some started as early as 3 or 4 years old. I was 9, so that's a little bit late, but still plenty of time, of course, to grow into my own. And what stands out to me is my parents really deciding that I needed to get into the sport. So there's a big competition between the two of them. One says that I got home faster than the family German Shepherd, and that's how she knew. My mom says that she knew she needed to get me into a track and field program. My dad, on the other hand, says that we were at the Carnegie Science Center, and I was racing the FloJo hologram, and that's the only thing I wanted to do all day long, and that is how he knew I needed to get into a track and field program.
Any one of them, were they involved in track?
Neither was involved in track. So my mother was not allowed to play sports because of the time period. Her grandmother was very traditional and raised her and thought that women should not be exercising or sweating or doing anything. But she's always been very muscular. And then my dad, on the other hand, he spent his whole life swimming all around Trinidad and Tobago, and very, very strong swimmer, but never in an organized sport. So he loved the water and always encouraged me to be very active.
Okay, so then at what age did you get into actually being involved in competition?
So I started competing at 9 years old, and I didn't really like track and field very much. So I was very active. I did basketball, gymnastics, you name it, karate, everything. I just played all the sports. But track and field was the thing that I always stood out in, and my speed always stood out. So even in fact in basketball, one time I ran into the wall because I was doing some suicides, back and forth. And I got so fast in front of everyone trying to show off and make the team that I hit the wall and I broke both of my wrists. So running has always been the theme in my life, more so than any of the other sports, but I enjoy doing everything. Okay.
Now take us back a bit to, I know you hold the record at the university in the 100, 200 high jump and the relays at your university. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I was a sprinter at the University of Miami, and I was really fortunate to get an education from such a good school and to be recruited. And I think that's one of the other things that really stands out about my career is my mom and dad said, this track thing is nice, but you make sure that you get your education. They always put education first. And the two things were able to mesh really well together because I was able to use track and field to get the education. And I think that's one of the things that we need to encourage kids to do nowadays is, stay on top of your studies, but then also you can use sports not just to have a good time and to play outside. That's wonderful and it's good for your health, but also it can give you the opportunity to, exceed what maybe even your own expectations are and to succeed in life. So, looking for the opportunity to get education, a lot of people now are borrowing and getting student loans and things like that, and it's really tough. But if you really apply yourself in a sport that you participate in, you have the opportunity now to go to a college and they'll pay for your college education, and now you're going to be a better professional and a better young person in the workforce because of sport. So the two things can work really well together, sport and lifestyle.
Is there any one athlete, or athletes that you looked at and maybe patterned yourself off or took inspiration from them in your career?
I don't have any one person that was necessarily a role model, but I always had a really good support system. So my peers that are around me were always very focused. Sonia Richards Ross is one that I knew quite quite well. And then Wallace Spearman was another. And, you know, even in, as I grew older, you had the people that you looked up to. So like Otto Bowden, for example, he's been a very big influence in my life and actually even helped me with the book. So making sure that you have a good support system of people around you and that they're able to contribute to you, I think is kind of like a role model in and of itself. It's not any one person, but it's just keeping good people in your circle.
At the youth level, let's talk a bit about the accomplishment at the youth level before you actually turned pro in 2002, right? That was
2004.
2004, but let's talk about the youth. What are some of the accomplishments that you shared?
Well, as a youth athlete, I did win the national championships, and I think that was nice. But I think one of the things that really stands out to me is that I wasn't the most accomplished. I didn't win every single championship from age 9 to 19 or something like that. And I think sometimes young athletes get discouraged because they don't make it to the national championship, or they don't make it from their regional to the next round, or those sorts of things. But when you realize that it's a process, and part of being a good athlete, in addition to becoming a good person, is getting up every day and returning. So some days you don't win, but you return the next day. Some days your legs hurt, but you return the next day. And so it's this idea of being persistent and showing up again and again and again and keep applying yourself is what really allows you to have success. You don't have success every single time you have a race or a competition, but you keep showing up. And I think that was the thing that stood out about my childhood, was I wasn't the all-star athlete. I was pretty fast, and I didn't really have a lot of training. I didn't have a lot of big-time coaches or anything like that. It was a lot of parents that were volunteering their time and just helping the kids be active. That were investing in us to make sure that we were at different track meets and participating, but they didn't know any expertise in how to make me faster. So it took a little bit longer, but it definitely was worthwhile to pursue that year in and year out.
When you started out, did you plan to focus on making the national team and running for the USA, or you just was doing it and wherever it take you go? Or you had set a goal that I'm going to make the USA team at this age, or next 2 years, or next 3 years or so?
No, so yeah, that's a really good question. As a child, I didn't grow up wanting to be an Olympic athlete. I had no idea what that meant. I do remember watching the Olympics on TV and thinking that it was a really cool thing to see all these athletes participating in their various sports, but it was never a goal or dream of mine. My goal or dream was to get an education. That was the most important thing. And so I set small goals, and the small goals are what led to the big things and always opened a new door for me. So as an example, when I got the track and field scholarship, the small goal was I wanted to repay my coach. Whatever I needed to do to repay her for this opportunity to get a free education, I wanted to do. So it wasn't really so much about being the best track and field athlete for her. For me, it was being the best track and field athlete for her, because I wanted her to feel like she got what she invested in me. And so that was the first small goal. And so by doing that and just trying to follow through with that, I made it to the national championships as a freshman. And then I made it again as a sophomore. My freshman year, I got last place. But nationals is a really good deal for a freshman. And then as a sophomore, I got 5th place. And so now it's starting to feed, like I said, that persistence once again. It's starting to feed the energy to be a competitor. And I got to my junior year and I was ready to compete. It started to bubble in me. I wanted to win for myself now, not just for her. So I'm starting to buckle down, learning more about nutrition and all the different things that you can do to take your experience to the next level. And so those little small goals are what led to me getting to the point of becoming a professional athlete. The goal in that year of my junior year of college was win the national championships for college. It was not become an Olympic gold medalist, which I became Olympic silver medalist, which is a really cool thing. But by focusing on something small and achieving that thing right in front of you, you can always go past it. And I think that's really what we need to focus on, is set a small goal and go for that thing, go really hard toward it, and you'll be surprised the other things that will come in addition to.
I'm glad you answered the question that way, because I wanted to find out, or not really find out, I want you to talk to athletes, because sometimes we get so involved in sport and we actually focus so much on winning that we lose that direction, that there is life after sports. And when an athlete retires, then at a late age now, you're fumbling now to see what you can do, what sort of job you can get and that's a problem that we have all over the world.
Yes.
But let's talk a bit about when you got called up the first time for the Olympics. What was that feeling like? And take me through that experience.
For the very first time, it was pretty...
And were you expecting it?
I was still not expecting it. So it's 2004. I'm a junior in college. I run the second fastest time in the world at the national championships and win the national championships. And immediately, I'm now the fastest American so far for the year. I've run faster than Marion Jones and Inger Miller and all these big name athletes that have been on the scene for quite a while. And I'm just a junior in college. So my coach has to sit me down and explain to me that there's a really cool opportunity in front of you. You can make the Olympic team, and not just make the Olympic team. They're kind of counting on you to win the gold. So as much as I love for you to stay in school and be, continue to coach you, I think that you're going to have a better economic opportunity if you go ahead and go pro. So it was really cool to experience that, but also it was very scary because I was 20 years old. I had been living off of, I think, less than $1,000 a month as a college athlete, and I didn't know anything about going pro or making money or how all of that worked. And I was over 18, so I'm an adult. I needed to figure that out. So it's a little bit kind of weird to have to navigate, but I figured out how to do it, and like I said, once again, I had a good support system that helped me get through that process. So yeah.
Yeah, so tell me the experience now going to the Olympics. What was that like for you the first time?
Yes, so I finished the whole pro thing, and my coach took me through the summer, and I got to see all these different athletes. You get to Athens, Greece, which I think was a really cool place to have my first Olympic Games, the home of where it all started. And one of the things you have to figure out is jet lag. So I had been fortunate enough to travel on international teams before, but I still was not very good at that, figuring it out. So we went over really early, got the jet lag down, started getting into a training routine, and then one of the biggest and best piece of advice I've ever got was don't do anything different. I think so often you get to something big, the championship or the Olympic Games, and you try to do something other than what got you there. And that's how a lot of athletes mess up the opportunity. And I think that was really good advice, was to stick to what I already knew, execute on all what I already knew, and that's what led to me earning the silver medal in 2004.
Now, you've gone through your career as a track athlete. If you look back now at that point in time in your life, given another opportunity, are there things that you would change, or you would just do it all over the same way? And what are some of your disappointments and your greatest memory in the whole career as an athlete? Something that you hold dearly now, that when you sit in your quiet moments, it brings a smile to your face.
I would say the moments of struggle were when I didn't know what to do. And that's part of the reason that I wrote the book was there were so many times during my career where I didn't know what the next step was, and I felt like I was blindly trying to make a good decision. So in any decision-making process, you want to gather the facts, you want to look over the facts, and then you want to make an educated decision based on the information that you've been given. Well, frequently I was coming up with no information to look for, so there was nothing to weigh. It was just kind of like cross your fingers and hope that this is the right thing. And I think that was really hard. That led to me making all sorts of different mistakes. At one point I hired a marketing agency, and I was paying them on a monthly basis, and they never produced anything for me. I wanted to increase my brand and my platform, and that's a really wonderful thing to do, but how do you find someone to help you to figure those things out, and what questions do you ask? And a lot of times people are a lot older than you, and they're looking at you like a child, but you're paying your money and you're a client. And so it was hard to navigate, like you said, that client, I'm hiring you position when someone was so much older and you're trying to respect your elders and things like that. So that was one mistake. Then also, with the financial advisor. So I had 2 financial advisors during my career, and I knew I needed to be responsible with my money. It was very important to me to know and understand. I was a finance major at the University of Miami, and I wanted to make good decisions, but the 2 gentlemen that I worked with didn't understand what a 20-year-old needed to know about money. They didn't want to start at the beginning. They wanted to start on step 7 or 8, in my view, now that I know a lot more about this, and that's investing. Investing is an important part of making your money grow and making it work for you, but if you don't know 1 + 1 = 2, you're not ready to invest yet, And so I needed the basics. I needed to understand how to put my monthly budget together, and how much of this money should I be saving versus how much I should be spending. And I think those are the little kind of things that happen off the track or off the field of play that athletes don't spend a lot of time on, because we're so focused on reaching the goal, maximizing our performance, and we don't realize that there's a lot more to being a professional than just showing up and competing. There's so much more to the picture, and then there's so much more to us. Like, to your point, you were saying about having a hard time transitioning. We need to be working on who we are and what we want to be, and we need to have purpose beyond reaching the top of the podium well before our podium days are over, so that we can transition from sport to life after sport a lot more seamlessly.
Okay. Now, if you have to give advice to a young athlete who is out there, maybe just acquire a scholarship and is away from his home birth, what sort of advice you will give to him in the sense of choosing the right managers, choosing the right staff around him? Because you can relate to that now, because you had a good support staff, but then still you had people who came and who was not performing the duties that you wanted them to do. What do you look for in getting the right support staff, managers, trainers, and people like that, so that you can focus more on your sport and leave that part for they to do for you, but still have that trust in them?
Yeah, I think there's three things that, no matter what sport you're participating in, if you have the opportunity to go from competing on a college level to a life after sport level, that you need to talk to every single support person that you're interviewing. And one is asking questions. So it's this idea that there's no stupid questions. Just because you're younger and they seem a little bit more experienced and they're giving you all the information they think you need, that could be very well intentioned and it could all be very good information. But you need to come up with some questions, and it doesn't matter if you Google those questions. You sit down with a friend or a family member and ask them, what kind of questions would you have for this person? Come up with questions, and don't leave without having answers to your questions, because questions are the way that you get information that someone else is not trying to share with you. I can tell you all the wonderful things about me, but if you don't ask me a question about, like, what's the hardest thing you ever done, I'm going to leave that information out. So make sure that you're asking a lot of questions, and make sure that you get the answer to those questions and that you understand the answer to those questions. The second thing when you're interviewing anyone is to be thinking about what is life after sport for me? So you ask that person, what do you see for me life after sport? So it doesn't matter that you're at the beginning of your career. And I think that's one of the things we always forget about, because we're excited it's the beginning of our career. But someone who's really going to be a good member of your team is already going to be thinking about you as more than an athlete and more than a person that's going to, take their career to the next level. So you want to make sure that you ask them, who do you see me as off of the track? And then the third thing too is, what can you do to help me grow outside of the thing that I'm asking you to do? So if it's your nutritionist, for an example, of course, we want them to be very well versed in food things, but, is there any other way that you can help me grow as an athlete? And what are those ways that you can help me grow? So I think by asking those three questions, no matter what kind of support staff it is, whether it's coaching, nutrition, agent, whoever, you get a really good idea for, whether they're really invested in you or if they're just trying to collect your money and better benefit themselves.
Good advice. Let's talk a bit about a major topic in track and field, doping. What's your thought on the whole process?
It has been a rough road. So I've been a member of the WADA Athlete Advisory Committee for, I think, 5 or 6 years. And, I got to go through the actual, Russian doping scandal. I got to compete in Sochi, where I didn't know they were passing samples through the wall. So it hit me home really, really hard to see all that's happened in the world of doping lately, and how lax they dealt with everything up to this point. I am hopeful and optimistic that now that there's been so much light shined on the inadequacies of the system, that we are going to start to close the gaps. And by closing the gaps, we are going to move forward in sports all across the world, that it's going to be better for everyone. So myself, I never used any supplements for my career. So, obviously drugs is out of the question. Nobody should do that, no one should. But I took it a step further and said I'm not even going to use these vitamins and all these different things that
supplements and all those.
Yeah, because they're making that stuff in the lab. And now you're trusting a scientist with your life. There's good food, there's good nutrition, and you need to, as an athlete who wants to take yourself to the next level, invest the time in understanding what that food does and which food you need to eat to be able to maximize your ability to compete. So
now you are one of the only American athlete to compete in both the Summer Olympics and the Winter Olympics, right? Is that one of your crowning glories, or is it that again you just take everything as it comes?
Yeah, that was a taking everything as I come. So I am very proud of the accomplishment overall. But I think some of the other things that I've accomplished, like I said, now that I'm older and I'm looking back on the sport, is this idea that there's these things that are happening during sport that are going to contribute to who you become as a person and how well-rounded you become. So, for example, I got to participate in bobsled as well. And our sled crashed just 3 days before we were scheduled to compete. So we potentially had almost lost our opportunity to compete. And, we didn't know what we were going to do. Of course, we were very stressed out. They rebuilt our sled in less than 24 hours. We go down the track for our very last practice to test out the new sled, fingers crossed that it's working properly. And we made it down. We ran the fastest time of the day without even really trying to push that hard. We get back to the top of the mountain, and you see everybody there from all countries, all nations, and they're cheering for us. And that moment will forever be a memory for me, because it wasn't about getting on the podium and winning the Olympics at that point. It was about the idea that everybody as a country wanted to see us do well. All over the world, you saw what the real Olympic spirit was about. And so those sorts of things have been really instilled in me by being able to compete. And so you talk about accomplishment, it's accomplishment of making that bobsled team so that I can live through a moment like that where I get to see the whole world come together and I get to see people support one another, because we have so many examples of bad things happening in the news day in and day out.
True.
And all the different adversities of cultures and things like that, but everybody was so excited to see that we were going to get our chance to compete. And I think it was a really moving moment in my life, and I draw on that moment frequently whenever I come up against something nowadays, because I realize it's better to unite with someone than it is to have confrontation with them.
Listening to you, it brought me back to the movie Cool Runnings. you ever saw that movie?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the only thing I knew about bobsled before.
Right. Yeah. It brought me back to that. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
All right.
And we'll continue our conversation. Now we're going to talk about life after track.
Okay.
You guys will be right back after the short break.
You're now changing your question.
What I would say, Steve, is this.
My first question was, and roll back that tape.
I made my debut for Crystal Palace against Tottenham Hotspur.
My responsibility was to get the ball and make things happen offensively.
All the time we've played together, I've always been the decoy.
Welcome to Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David, and I'm your host.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to another edition of Scoreboard here on ACT, and it's always a pleasure to be in your company every Tuesday evening between the hours of 8 and 9.
Welcome to the new season of Football 101. I am your host, Joshua DeMatos.
Well, it's time for your weekly football news update. I love you, Messi.
Unfortunately,
hey, kiss the badge, kiss the badge. Oh, what's that?
welcome to this edition of the interview. And as you can see, I'm not alone on the set. I have Marcus, a Liverpool fan, and I have Shakir.
Welcome back, viewers. Welcome back to Scoreboard here at ACTN, and I'm chatting with Lauryn Williams. Now, Lauryn, your career has ended. Now that you're I wouldn't say, I was going to say in the twilight of your career, of your life, but now that you are retired from track, you're a business person now. You're an author, right? Tell us about that part of your life now. Is it fast as the track life?
It is. It actually is. So you're juggling multiple balls all the time as an entrepreneur. And I think one of the things that's really cool is when you go through the transition from sport to life after sport, figuring out, where you belong and what you need to do. As I said earlier, I believe it's really important that you're working on that while you're competing so that you're not having such a hard time transitioning. Because I can tell every athlete that it's going to be really hard to transition no matter what. Leaving sport is kind of like, mourning the death of someone. It's something that you spend a lot of time.
So difficult?
Very difficult. Very, very difficult. It's something you spend a lot of time, you invested in. It's a relationship, not just with the competition, but the people around that are no longer going to be near you. It's a huge transition. And I know now that I'm a financial planner, I also see when people retire from whatever position they participated in the workforce, they also have a similar kind of feeling where something is missing because you've dedicated so much of your time to this. So you're going to feel those growing pains no matter what, but the more that you're prepared, the easier it is to kind of work through that time and then move on to the next thing. And so for me, it was trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between the things that I knew and then also the things that I was passionate about. So I was a finance major, but I didn't know really exactly what I was going to do. And luckily, track and field came into the picture, and so I didn't have to make a decision immediately about, what life after college was going to look like for me because the decision just kind of popped into the picture. But along the way, like I said, I had two gentlemen that weren't very helpful as it pertains to helping me organize my finances. So there's a little theme that's starting to happen, finance degree to financial planners. Then I got a master's degree in business. And so little did I know that the groundwork was being laid for me to be able to go and figure out something else and understand what I wanted to do. So as I was contemplating now, okay, I'm finished with sport, what can I do to give back to sport? Because I know I want to be involved. And, you bump into a lot of people, oh, you're going to do coaching now. Oh, you're going to be a personal trainer. They try to kind of pigeonhole, you're going to do broadcasting. And there's so many different jobs and opportunities and interests that athletes have that, I feel it's really unfair to just say, because you're an athlete, you have to be a coach. Because you're an athlete, you have to be a commentator. I think that you can be anything you want to be, and the same way we went to school, you can go and do something in any of those fields that you were studying, and everybody has a different interest. So it was hard for me at first from a identity standpoint of understanding, like maybe I have to just go coach because other people keep telling me I need to do this, but I have no passion for coaching. I don't know anything about the sport as it pertains. Like my coach was a very good coach. I was the vessel and she was the one that was very good at communicating to me what I needed to do to maximize my full potential. That's what a good coach does. I can't do that for anyone, so I was not going to be a good coach. Yeah. So it was like, how do I bridge the gap? And as I talked to my friends, both during my career and as I was transitioning, and I had a plan. I wasn't going to work for 3 years, I said, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to figure out what I want to do. And my friends were like, what are you talking about? How are you going to do that? And I'm like, well, I saved my money. Like, that was my plan. So if I need to go get an internship and not work so that I can learn the craft of whatever thing I want to do next, then I'm going to be able to do that. And they were just like, well, I got to get a job now. And I started to learn that there's a thing here. And even like I said, during my career, I asked questions about, do you have this retirement plan or do you have that? Or, what are you guys doing? Because my guy put me in this, but I don't really understand what it is. And there's this real eerie kind of, don't discuss money with me. It's very private. And I knew there was something to it. So I started to kind of dig deeper into that. And I realized that athletes and other young people have a really hard time getting the help that they need in understanding their finances and making the most of it, because we have a really great opportunity in track and field and a lot of the other sports as well to earn a good living for a short period of time. And we're probably not going to earn the same kind of living, in our next thing, or it'll take us a little while to ramp back up to those kind of earnings. So you need a plan now for later, but when you're in the now, all you're thinking about is how to maximize the now.
Definitely.
So that's when you need someone else that comes in who's objective, who says, okay, I'm going to be thinking about you later, and we're going to be making some goals, and we're going to, make you only spend this much now because we need some for later. And I thought it would be great for me to be able to share that with others and to share what I've learned from my mistakes, because I didn't get it all right. I didn't do it perfect. I made plenty of financial mistakes. I made plenty of just life mistakes. But those things that I learned, and then I said I did a lot of things right that my peers didn't know or didn't even think to do. And I'm kind of meshing that with my education and being able to serve the athlete community and continue to give back to sport.
Let's talk a bit about the book,
Okay.
the oval practice. This is designed for track and field athletes only, no other sport.
I won't say no other sport. I mean, it's very specific to track and field, but there are some themes of things inside of that book that I think any professional athlete could relate to. And one of the things that I get asked frequently is, why did you only write it for one sport?
I was about to ask you that.
See,
Yeah.
exactly. But the truth is that any athlete watching right now would know that even if they only know a little bit about what it means to go pro in their sport, that boxing does not go pro the same way that track does. That, bobsledding has a very different system than canoeing and gymnastics, and they're all very different in the approach, in the way that they're able to earn money and who sponsors them, what kind of people are interested. And so in order to write something really good and really high quality, I needed to focus in one area. But I'm already thinking, and I've already been contacted by some people who are interested in, you're the expert in boxing, so Lauryn, can you tell me, let's use the framework of your book so that I can be the expert on boxing and help to get the books going. So I see this becoming something like Editions, where there's a boxing version and a gymnastics version and a so-and-so version, but I need to bring in those experts now that I've laid the framework.
Now, if I'm to ask you, when you look back at how athletes spend their time after retirement, a lot of athletes actually, they tend to struggle for many reasons after they have finished their career. What sort of advice you will give to an athlete who comes out of retirement, didn't plan maybe financially or educate himself during the career in sport, but now there's nothing he can do about it except to go out into the world and fend for himself? What sort of advice you will give him in how to go there and find whatever he can hold on to maybe earn an honest living in his latter years?
Yeah, I would say the first thing you need to do is to be honest with yourself. You got to swallow your pride, which is one of the things that's really hard, because as athletes, we always got our chests puffed out, and our confidence is one of the things that allows us to be able to succeed well. But you got to go ahead and say, how do I move on to this next thing, and how do I, make the most of whatever is left over? So whether it's the leftover funds or the leftover network that you have a lot of resources available to you as an athlete. And don't spend so much time focusing on the obstacles, which, I didn't get to finish school, I don't have enough money, I don't know what I want to do. You can sit and you can wallow in those things all day, or you can focus on the opportunities. I always prefer to focus on the opportunities. So the opportunities are things like reaching out to those people that you were in connection with whenever you were competing. And, there's always people who say, if you ever need any help, don't hesitate to give me a call. Well, yes, it would have been better if you fostered those relationships while you were competing, but it's not too late to reach out to them. People love what you did. They loved watching you compete. And I think it's really important that you draw on that and don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, I'm in the midst of my transition. I'm not really sure what I want to do. Would you want to have lunch so I can learn about your business and what path you're on? Or, I'd love any wisdom or information that you have. You don't just reach out and ask for something like, I need a job right now. You start to build those relationships, even if you didn't do it in the past. And I think the other thing, like I said, in not focusing on the obstacles is trying to figure out how to get the education you need. So if you didn't finish school, what options do you have to go back to school? If it's not school that you want to do, then what other things are out there? There's all kinds of different programs now where people are assessing what you're good at. So you can take a test and it'll tell you if you're likely to end up in the financial field, or if you'll be good at postal work, or if you're good at talking to people. There's things like that. So don't sit on the couch and wait for something to come to you. Start reaching out and looking for the resources, because as an athlete, in and of itself, your competition days and the people who watched you is a resource. And so you just got to pull those two things together and then make it come together and start moving forward.
Okay. What's your purpose of your visit to Trinidad and Tobago?
My purpose of my visit, okay, so it is multiple purposes. One is my family is still here. Many people of the Williams family are all over Port of Spain and all over Tobago, and so I'm going around and seeing them, spending some time, reconnecting, and then in addition to that, I've always wanted to go to the Great Goat Race. So I'm heading over to Tobago on Easter Sunday, and I'll be there in the stands on Tuesday, cheering like crazy. I don't know for the goat, the crab, or how exactly it works just yet, but
just make noise. Just make noise.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then also to really encourage the TT Olympic Committee, because I think that this is a really promising time in Trinidad, and I think it's really a great opportunity. Like I said, now that I've transitioned from sport to life after sport, to figure out how I can contribute. And my Trini roots make me want to come back here and want to give something back to not just, like I said, sport in America, but to sport overall. And figuring out how I can work with the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee so that we can continue to move sport forward here is one of the main reasons that I came back. I'm really excited and interested to figure out how we can get more events here in Trinidad, because it's sunny outside. Yeah. There's not better weather, and they're having events in the United States in places that are cold and snowy and raining, and it's like, for what? This is the community that we should be doing those kind of things. So we want to figure out how to get people here to this country, which is going to bring economic resources to the country, I just want to do my part to be able to contribute to growing the sports industry over here as well.
I'm sure that you have been keeping a close eye on the performance of the Trinidad and Tobago athletes in the last couple, maybe 5 or 6 years. When you look at our athletes, what's your view? Where do you see us, up there with the bigger countries?
Well, I'm not shocked or surprised at all, because I know the Trini blood that runs through me and how it helped me be fast and successful. And so as I see these girls that are starting to get more and more popular, and they're rising to the top, and they're cream of the crop as it pertains to their abilities in track and field, I know it's just a matter of time before we have an Olympian from Trinidad and Tobago. I think that it's going to be really important, though, that they have the resources available to them to continue. So it's one thing to show the promise and the talent, but there's another thing to have the community come around you and to support you so that you can continue to foster that energy and really help you reach your full potential. So I think it's a critical time where these girls have shown their talent, and we've got to encourage them. We've got to get the right resources around them so that we can have some Olympic medalists as well in the 2020 games coming up here.
So we're going to be seeing Lauryn in Trinidad and Tobago on a more frequent visits, and taking a major part in the TTOC and the development of the athletes as we go forward for 2020?
I certainly hope so. I am happy to be as involved as everybody in the TTOC community would like me to be. Like I said, I am very proud of my Trinidadian roots, and I'd love to, like I said, not just be serving the United States, but to also be serving this community, because it's important to me.
I want you to take this time and look into the camera and share a positive message to our athletes.
A positive message?
Yes.
I would just say that my motto is hard work knows no limits. And so what it means to me is that when you're working hard toward a goal, that a door will always open for you. So as an example, I was competing as a kid, and we didn't have a lot of money. And as they saw me working hard, they said, keep going, Lauryn, you can do this. And it was one of those things where shoes showed up just at the right time so that I had shoes to run in my race, because people saw me working hard toward a goal, and hard toward a goal, and they wanted to help me reach my full potential. So hard work knows no limits. Go for what you want, work hard toward it, and a door will open for you.
It was indeed a pleasure chatting with you, Lauryn, and I want to wish you all the best in your career after sport. And I know you're going to enjoy the rest of your stay in Trinidad and Tobago, because you're not a foreigner, you're Trinidad and Tobago. You're training to the bone. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to chat with me. And we're going to look for more books dealing with boxing and other sports, because you can't be biased and just have one book for track and field.
You're right. I am on it though.
Because the other sporting entities are definitely going to be interested in what you have to say, right? And I think you need to share it. All the experience that you have, you need to share it with other sports.
Well, if we have a sports expert in any other sport that is interested in writing a book, even co-writing with me, let's do it. Let's get something out there for gymnastics and boxing and karate and you name it. Let's have a book for every single one, so that they understand what they need to do to be a good professional in whatever sport they're competing in.
Thank you very much. It was indeed a pleasure.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. Well, viewers, we have come to the end of another edition of Scoreboard here on ICNTT. I was chatting with world-renowned track athlete and now business person, Lauryn Williams. We hope that you enjoyed the program. If you missed any part of the program today, there is a repeat tomorrow at 1 p.m. so you can have the full information. And we want to again say welcome home, and we hope that you will be in Trinidad more often, and I'm sure that your experience and everything is going to do a lot for our athletes and for the TTOC. And for the TTOC, thank you all for bringing home another Trinidadian who could be involved in our sport and uplift the younger athletes. So again, to Brian and the crew, thank you very much on a good job, and we support you.